Now, the UK football team defensively has struggled a little bit this year. Have some young players that the coaches talk about turning them into Wesley Woodyard type of guys at the linebacker position. And we're now happy to be joined via Skype from Denver by Wesley Woodyard, the Denver Broncos. Wesley, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Now, we got to ask you, before we start talking UK, this weekend you had an interception on Sunday, which is all good and fine. But then afterwards, you did a little dance. Can you take us through the dance afterwards? What was that all about?
Man, that dance was, I originally got it from Blood Sports with Jean-Claude Van Damme, but it was an inside joke between me and two other my teammates. I told them I would do it if I made a big play. So, it was just something to get my teammates excited about. So, it was funny doing it, though.
Well, unfortunately for the UK football team, 1-3 so far this season. Hasn't been a lot of stuff to dance about. As an alum of the program and a guy that played a lot of meaningful games and won some big games, when you look at what's going on right now with the UK football team, what's your take on the overall big picture, what's happening in Lexington?
It's tough to sit back and, see those guys lose like that, man, but somebody has to step up. You can't continue to get beat, games that you should beat and games that you should be in. Somebody has to step up and be a playmaker out there for those guys.
How hard is it for young guys? Like, we look at the defense, for example, Danny Trevathan and Winston Guy left, and there are a lot of young players stepping up. How hard is it when you get into those SEC games to get your legs under you and get adjusted to the speed of play and things like that?
Man, it's real hard. Whenever you lose both of your leading tacklers off of the defense, it's hard to find somebody that can replace them, but it's really tough, getting that quality SEC football experience is real hard to find. So it takes a little while for guys to, get their wind up on them, finally get comfortable in that game setting. And then once they get ready, they're ready for the rest of their career.
Did you have a moment when you were playing where, you were thrown out there and all of a sudden you just felt like everything coming together, like a particular game or anything where you finally felt like, hey, this all makes sense now and I can play at this level?
Man, to me, I was ready when I got a chance to play. The first game that we played versus Louisville, I didn't play any defense, so I had my mind made up. Whenever I got on the field, whenever I got a chance, I wasn't coming off, and that's the type of attitude that guys need to approach the game of football with. At Kentucky, to continue to have success around there. You can't be, well, if I'm not in, that's an excuse. You can't make excuses. You just got to be ready to play and do well for your teammates and your coaches.
Now, there's a lot of pressure, obviously, on Joker Phillips before the season. Some people saying this was a make-or-break season for him. He's on the hot seat. Now, starting the season 1-3, radio shows, message boards, everything, people calling for his job. You obviously know Joker pretty well. He recruited you. You played there when he was the coach. Take us through the situation, what you know about Joker Phillips, and do you think he's the guy that can lead Kentucky out of this and get back to where the program's going to bowl games?
Man, my thing is, everything is all sweet, from day one when they signed Joker, he signed on him. But, technically, this is his first few years. So, he's going to have some bumps and bruises. But the thing about Joker is, he's there for the program. He's not like it's somebody that didn't play college football there. So, his heart is in the right place, and he definitely wants to win. They just have to continue to keep recruiting guys that have that competitive atmosphere in their own body, It's hard finding good players to compete in the SEC, but, I think if we give them some time and we continue to stick by and show support, things will turn out great for the program, And in the SEC, you got to have consistency to be a factor in the SEC. And, changing coaches every 2 or 3 years is not the way to do it. So, me and everybody else, we just got to stay around the guys because, that's the big reason of why recruits don't choose Kentucky is because they don't know whether or not coaches are going to be there, coaches are not going to be there.
The adversity outside the locker room right now, it's with losing football games and people pressure on Joker Phillips, wondering if he's going to be back. But when you're at Kentucky, there's a lot of things that go on outside football because it's an uphill battle against those other teams in the SEC. When you're in that locker room, how hard is it at times, or how important is it, I guess, to keep everybody on that same page and say, you know what, it doesn't matter what's happening outside, it's what's happening inside, and let's stay focused on football. How tough is that sometimes?
It can get tough, and that's what people like to happen. They like to get inside the locker room and pull the team apart, and to be a good team, you can't let that happen. I take it back to my senior year. We had some issues, all the way to my junior year. We had some issues, and, you know, but we came together as a team, as the coaching staff, as the players, and we decided that we were going to get it right. So, you know, it just has to be somebody has to step up. And, you know, all the time it can't be the coaches, and, you know, vice versa. It has to be a group effort. You know, the players and the coaches have to come together and play. You know I didn't like get my butt whooped by 49 points, so I wanted to do something about it.
Kind of off topic a little bit, you're very active on Twitter. Do you follow Rich Brooks on Twitter, his Twitter account about tomatoes and everything?
Man, I do follow Coach, but I didn't see his Twitter tweet about tomatoes. But you know, Coach Brooks is a funny guy. You know, him and Coach Phillips recruited me there. You know, he's a class act, man. I still talk to him to this day. You know, wherever he's golfing out somewhere. You know, he's one of those guys that I always keep in touch with.
Now, of course, the big stories around the Broncos is Peyton Manning's joined the team. Also, former Cat Jacob Tammy's with you. We talked to him over the summer. Now that streak is broken against Tennessee, no matter what happens, if the Cats beat the Vols again this year, you're going to let Peyton hear about it, right?
Oh, without a doubt. We've already been talking about this, you know, since he came here. You know, Kentucky this, Tennessee that. So it's been a good rival. We have 3 Wildcats here, and we have 4 volunteers here. So, you know, it's going to get real hectic and real heated around here when that time comes. So it's exciting. You know, Peyton, he's a great sport, man. He's a good sport of the game. So, you know, it's going to be exciting when we get a chance to face off against him.
All right, Wesley Woodyard, thank you very much for joining us. Good stuff. And best of luck this season to the Broncos and yourself personally.
Thanks a lot, man. Go Wildcats.
All right.